Hi, Penny. So good to see you for our season two of the Progressive Soul podcast. How have you been?
Awesome. Really good considering the way our lives are quite different. I'm just trying to keep positive and optimistic and look for the opportunities in all the craziness. How about you?
Lots of fun. Still in a pandemic, so there you go. That is life at the moment.
It is good to be here.
Good to have you here. So, before we delve into like our proper series season 2 thing, I'd like to use this episode and basically do a recap over what we've covered in season 1.
Mhm.
How does that sound for you? Shall we do that?
Let's do it.
So, one of our chats in season 1 was about owning our power, owning your power, owning. Tell me a bit about that.
Well, so owning your power is, I feel, a really freeing thing. It helps us to create boundaries in a positive way of what matters and what doesn't matter, what we take on, what we don't take on. And I think we talked about how we all have friends or family that tend to have a lot going on in their lives, and they tend to kind of bring us down occasionally. They don't necessarily intend to, but maybe we feel a bit drained after the whole experience. So owning your power can really empower you to not necessarily get drawn into that drama, and to be present and acknowledge and be a good friend and be a good family member, but not necessarily get drained by the experience. But owning our power is also really important in our spiritual work and pathway. So the more that we understand the power that is us as individuals and how we can control that, I suppose, is a good word. How we can be in charge of our presence and power is a really important thing, because it gives us strength when we need the strength, and it lets us be vulnerable when we need to be vulnerable, I suppose, in the best kind of way, that is.
Amen to that. Really interesting you said that because our next, the following episode to that was on intentions and setting them.
Mm.
And I think you also touched a bit on the progressive soul and what that is. So why don't you give me the run of that?
So there's been some progress on the progressive soul, which is exactly what it should be. It should do what it says on the tin, as they say. So the Progressive Soul series is a group mentoring session that I have set up to run every spring, which we're in at the moment. So people will have missed out on that one. But it will also run in the autumn. And I'm hoping to run that every year, spring and autumn. And now that we're all used to being online, it can help bring us together from different parts of the world, providing it's not the middle of the night for some people, unless they're that keen. And so it's a series of sessions where we can explore our individuality and spirituality, and also developing psychic and mediumistic skills. So it's looking at your power, understanding your power, how to own your power, setting intentions, which you just mentioned, and how setting intentions can be a really positive thing for any kind of spiritual, personal progress. And also in our mediumship, the intention with which we work is very important, because it has an energy to it, and everything that we do is based on energy, and the types of energy we put into things. So the intention setting, I think, is a really important key to how we can lead our lives in a more positive and empowering way.
That's impressive. What about intuition, Penny?
Well, intuition is something everybody has, and it has many names. Some people call it gut instinct, and some people might talk about it as a knowing, and obviously intuition or psychic ability. So, or clairsentience, which is that feeling aspect of psychic and mediumistic abilities. So it is a skill. Mediumship and psychic ability are skills, and not everybody is going to be as good as everybody else. So we all have intuition to a greater or lesser degree. And we can all learn to understand our abilities in that area and to what degree they work with us and for us, because of course intuition is something that is like a guiding compass, shall we say. It helps us to feel whether something is right or not. And sometimes I like to use the example of meeting people for the first time, or going to a house to look at it to see if you want to live there or an area. A lot of people might be meet somebody or go to a house and everything on the outside looks wonderful and just what you want, or really friendly as a person, and something tells you different. Something says, oh, I can't put my finger on this. Something doesn't feel right. And that's your intuition at work. And the more that we pay attention to that, the better. So it doesn't mean that something really bad and untoward is going to happen, but it just might be that it puts you on an awareness, if you like, to just pay attention to that feeling, and it might help you to make wiser decisions along your path.
That sounds really interesting. Sign me up for the progressive soul. So,
Yes.
can anybody sign up for that actually? Should you be interested in developing any abilities if you have any, or can anyone, no matter their abilities, can join your program?
Well, I would, whenever somebody wants to join, I usually send them a questionnaire, if you like. It helps me to get to know them a little bit and whether they've had any experiences or experience or not. So usually it attracts people of mixed ability. And so, as I say, it's a way in which people can come and explore in an environment and with people of like mind. And I don't make any guarantee that you can be a medium, but I can certainly create exercises and the environment to explore that in a safe and friendly way. So, and not everybody is a medium, but as I said, everybody has intuitive or psychic ability, and to what level you have that is an exploration. So the Progressive Soul series is certainly open to people who are open to wanting to learn more and understand more. And if nothing else, it will hopefully help you to be in tune more with your own spirituality and what drives you in this world that we're living in. So yes, in a matter of fact kind of a way, it's open to anybody that has a genuine need and desire to want to understand more and explore more.
Awesome. Thanks for clarifying that.
Mhm.
Going back to our podcast recap, we chatted also about soul and mind balance. And I know this is something we actually talk quite a lot on and off screen. And it's a part of many of our conversations. Sometimes we lead with the soul, sometimes we lead with the mind. So how does the seesaw of balance between those works?
Well, I feel like the whole soul mind balance comes back to it's a little bit deeper than the intuition, I feel. So, and again, maybe it's more strong in some people and less so in others, but we all have a soul, that's for sure. And it to me is that guiding life force that's within us all. And I certainly know from my own personal experience, I've had several occasions in my life where this feeling and knowing from this, from the solar plexus area. So I associate that with a part of where the energy of our soul resides. I'm not saying it's the sum total of, and it's almost as though you get these overwhelming feelings that override the conscious nagging mind, and those occasions in my life have been very interesting and life-changing in some respects. And I really feel that the more that we pay attention to that, because I think we all have those moments in our life where we're touched by something, or we feel empowered by something to not listen to, and I mean this in a constructive way. I'm not saying that we have impulses that are not constructive. These are all constructive, life-changing moments. And one of which meant that I moved from Australia to England, and there have been others as well. So that soul mind balance, I feel, is about not allowing your conscious, uncontrolled thoughts to override and overtake every moment and decision in your life. And it's about being more present in this world, and in your life, and being therefore more in tune with your spirituality. So being more in tune with the fact that you have an indestructible power within you. And when you can really know that and feel that, then other people's negative thoughts or words about you have less power against you, as an example. So you come to realize that perhaps there's something to that saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me, you know. And so it's sort of a bit deeper than that, obviously, but it's getting that balance, but and being a bit more present with the power of you. So so we see how all these things that I talk about all start to interlink, really.
Well, I'm really glad you said this, because next on is about listening to ourselves, listening to others, setting the boundaries between the two. Which one should we, which of these listenings should we attune more to, give more attention to?
Well, I think it's all things in balance, isn't it? So I suppose, we have to have a certain amount of logic involved in things, but we should also listen to our intuition, and what that tells us, because it might have a more wise, or wise might not be the right word, but the combination of these things will help us make an informed decision, I suppose, is what I want to say. And, you know, there are times in our lives that no matter how much we might talk to friends or family or other people, ultimately we have to make our own decisions. And listening to that power within us, listening to our soul's calling, or that knowing, that intuition in balance with everything else, I think is what then helps us make good and informed decisions that are right for us. And how many times do we look back on our lives and kind of go, do you know what? I'm kind of glad I listened to my instinct to do or not to do something, because I can see now how it fits into the scheme of things today, and it's a good thing, you know. So it's finding the balance of listening to all of these different aspects, because we are already a spirit, we are a soul, we have a consciousness, and we have a physical bodies, and we're in a physical world, but we're also connected to consciousness, we're connected spiritually, we're connected to an indestructible life force, and we know that energy isn't destroyed, it changes form. So we should take all things on balance and what feels and makes sense to us at that time.
Well, you kind of ruined the universal connection recap because you already touched on it.
I did it to you again.
So I'll jump ahead and just mention the stuff we will be talking about in the season 2 of this podcast. And I have here keeping the joy, delving a bit deeper into our inner knowing and leaps of faith. One of my favorites about railroads. I so look forward to that. And then about energy and how it changes form and all that. You mentioned it a bit here, but you know, we're gonna go deeper into that. Would you like to mention anything? Give our listeners a short, you know, a tiny peek into our upcoming conversations.
Well, I think the one I'm drawn to at the moment is the joy, and the joy in mediumship is actually a course I'm going to do in a few weeks' time, actually, or next month in June. So depending on when this podcast comes out, you might have missed it, but I'm sure that I will do it again. But it's something that it keeps coming to my mind, and I keeps resonating with me, and I keep mentioning it in other little workshops and things I've been doing, that sometimes when, and this can apply to all aspects of life, not just our development of mediumship or our spiritual pathway, it can relate to really all aspects of our lives, and that's keeping the joy. I think sometimes we get so bogged down in details that we forget to enjoy the simple things in life. And even though I don't have my own children, and despite the fact that I'm 50 years old, I still remember what it's like to have that childlike sense of wonder and excitement about things, that discovery of life, of exploring out in the garden and fantasizing about things. And I think, you know, we can sometimes lose that sense of joy and wonder in life. And particularly with this pandemic we've all been experiencing, we've all been touched by it, we've all been affected by it, whether it be, you know, losing loved ones because of it, but it can also be in simple things, but the isolation and all those sorts of things that have affected us. But we can, through the joy, we can look forward to and explore the environment in which we are in. And something that occurred to me through all this kind of crazy lockdown lifestyle is perhaps, even though it might not seem like it, this is an opportunity. And can I look for an opportunity? And what would that opportunity look like? And I'm not going to say what it is to our listeners just yet, but I've made some pretty big life-changing decisions. And so it was through that childlike sense of wonder, thinking what could be, and finding some joy and opportunity in whatever life is throwing me at that particular time. And it created an excitement and a joy. And so the joy built more joy. And I think that's really important. So I've applied that to people's mediumship and exploring mediumship. Sometimes people get bogged down in the details of getting the evidence and making sure it's right, and all of that's true and correct, and we do need to have a focus on that, but we shouldn't forget how amazing it is and how special it is and how joyful it can be. And that's what really creates the magic in it all.
Now, Penny, don't give it all away. What are we going to talk about in our next session?
I can't help myself.
Thanks so much. This has been really nice. Any closing remarks before we wrap this up and call it a day?
No, I'm just excited. And as you know, I love talking about all of this kind of stuff, and hopefully people like listening to it. So I can't wait to keep on keeping on with the flow of it. And let's see what comes up next time.
Well said. Listeners, thank you for joining for our season 2 recap, impromptu sales pitch for Penny's upcoming workshops. They were unintentional, by the way. We just happen to be doing a lot of cool stuff that we're excited about. So just so you know that. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon for episode 1. Take care.